Hello everyone, and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. For my one-on-one talk today, we're going to talk about addictions, and these are good habits turned bad. Now, you may think to yourself, wow, I don't have a drug addiction, I don't have, an alcohol addiction, because those are primarily the ones that we always speak of or hear of, in addition to others as well. But really, when we think about an addiction, we don't realize that sometimes there's that thin line between a habit to then an addiction. And when I came to realize the two that I'll be discussing that had hit me, when I start to discuss these two, you have to understand that to me, I thought it was a good thing. I was always trying to move into that right path and going into the right direction and really keeping myself in that completion of righteousness, that I wanted to do the right thing for myself, for my children, for my husband, my family. And it was, this collective thought that as long as I do good, then I am well. And so the two that I'll be discussing, and some of you might find this quite surprising, and yet some of you may have it, I hope, with all the right intent to make you realize that maybe it is something that I need to consider that may be an addiction. The two that I actually then came to terms with that I was starting to get addicted to was losing weight, which was really working out that led to it. And the other one was keeping the house clean, which led to me quite being obsessive, having an obsessive compulsive disorder. And so let's start with the working out. When I was in college, I really needed an outlet because I didn't even realize. Now, there's going to be an article that I'll be writing about in regards to passing the torchlight. I didn't realize that I was carrying the torchlight of fear and despair and hopelessness that had been passed on to me generationally. And I would be the first college graduate in my family. And somehow, subconsciously, there was always this fight where I knew I was going to finish, but there was always something that was trying to hold me back from finishing. And it was just this mindset. And I would try to escape away from my learning. First of all, because I didn't have that discipline in the background. I disciplined really myself to not watch Scooby-Doo when I was young, saying, hey, when I got home, I do my homework, put myself in a room and saying, okay, when I'm done with my homework, then I could go watch it on Scooby-Doo or He-Man or whatever it was that I was really into, She-Ra. Okay. And so back then, it was more of this habit forming in my mind that helped me to do well and be well in heart, mind, and spirit, even as a child. But as I got older, I didn't realize that I was also carrying that fear with me. I kept carrying this fear with me that, what if I don't finish? What if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? And I never wanted to involve anybody else around me, only because my fear was that they would be okay with my achievements and be okay with me just stopping right there. I could not be satisfied with that. I always felt that inactivity, immobility would make me fall back to where I did not want to be. So by the time I was in college, there were times where I didn't want to read, and or I didn't want to study. It was always this, just do it later. And honestly, I realized when I look back now reflectively that I was afraid to finish. And so I didn't have any other thing to do other than go work out or do your studies, and I would go sometimes into the lounge area or the cafeteria or the library. Hardly would I see anyone in the library that I would ever know. So that didn't give me any motivation. And then I would end up going to the cafeteria or the lounge, and I would see people just playing cards or doing something else other than studying. And I knew that that would not help me to be associating myself with others that would just pull me back and give me excuses not to do and not to complete anything. So the gym is where I felt people were productive, that they were working out, they were doing something with their body that was healthy for them, that was helping them to, for the betterment of their whole physique. It was a great place to be in. And so I started to do that, and I started to really love it. And up until then, when I finished, and when I finished my my undergrad, then all of a sudden I was at home and it's like, I've got to continue this. I've got to continue this because my schedule had changed a bit in college. Obviously, then when I finished college, then it was like, no, I got to keep going. And it was every time that I had my first child and my second child, it was like, I got to get back to this. I got to get back to this. I got to get back to this. And if I did not work out, on a routine basis, and I honestly, if you looked at my planner, you would laugh because it was basically the same thing duplicated. And it got to a point where I didn't realize that every time I would get on the scale, I could lose 1 more pound. I could lose 1 more pound. I could lose 1 more pound. And so what was such a good habit became a really bad one in that it became addictive. If I did not work out, I was not myself. I could feel it. I knew that it would start to eat away at me all throughout the day. And I would say to myself, yeah, I'm not well. I've got to go hit the gym. I could probably skip one day and know that I would have to hit it the next day. And it was only until my angel, my third child, she probably doesn't even realize is that by the time I had her, I started to lose a little bit more of that control. And, honestly, you always feel like things happen for that reason. There's no mistake in it at all, no fault. Because as I started to, have my children always being my primary concern, I started to say something's got to give. And even when I didn't get to work out every day, I had to then start to say, it's okay. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And so I started to gradually find that balance of my weight, whereas at one point it was always that -1, and that -1 that I could lose. There's one picture that I look back to and go, oh my gosh, I was totally emaciated back then. Didn't even realize it because I was just controlling what I could that entire time with my weight. And so by the time that I had my third child, that is when I actually focused in on giving more of my time to my 3 children, because it's a big jump from 2. I always say you pass the 2-hand limit. There's always one that's running around and doing things. And so I had to then refocus and say, okay, if I didn't get to work out every day, that's all right. And just by changing my habits, right, then it became just my working out. Then I was starting to then shift it into, well, now what else could I do if I wasn't working out? So then here comes my second one, which I was doing simultaneously with the kids, of course. But then because I started to give in a little bit on the workout, I was still working out 5 days a week. So trust me, I didn't let it go. But because I stayed home, then it became, it's a cleaning thing. I could work out while I'm cleaning, because if I just, really work really fast, vacuuming, and kid you not, I would make the kids breakfast, drop them off at school, and if there were still the ones that were staying at home with me, the younger 2 or the last one, I would then go home. I would clean up whatever the breakfast that they had, eat again, and do the dishes and so forth, the basics that you do on a daily basis as a stay-at-home mom. And then I would sweep, I would mop every day, sometimes twice a day. Then I would vacuum every room in the house, and then I would, including the stairs, okay, then I would vacuum, every little crevice that you could find. I didn't even know what a dust ball was back then, honestly. And then all of a sudden I would go to clean the mirrors, and then I would go and clean the bathrooms. And this was such a routine for me that I didn't even realize that when I wrote it down in my planner once again, it became this in my mind, like if I didn't do this on an everyday basis, I was failing myself. And so going back again as to why subconsciously I didn't realize that I was still carrying this torch, that you could call it the torch or torchlight, of all these subconscious things that were being said to me in the back, is that I didn't like the environment that I grew up in, where we were going from one home to another, and most of the time the places were not in the condition that was really truly livable. And so for me, I had to keep my home just as clean as I possibly could so that I would be well here. And it became such a routine for me that I was able to incorporate my workout in there. And I'd go hit the gym sometimes from 5:45 whenever it opened in the morning until like 7, and then at 7:30 right in time for me to make the kids breakfast. And then it was just something I didn't want to bother my entire family, and my husband knew this is just me doing me. This is my outlet. And then again, when they were at school, I was cleaning up, and then they came home, and then I was like following them. It became such an addiction for me that I realized, still to this day, I'm not as bad, but when I would see something out of place, it would throw me off. It was, and some of you women out there could really relate to that, where it would bother me to go, ooh, wow, I just cleaned that counter and now I see just the condensation from the glass. Now it's going off into the counters and I'm wiping again and so forth. Or if you saw a pencil that was not laid out right, just everything had to be fine-tuned in the home, because my fear was always, what if someone was to knock on the door and then all of a sudden when you finally allowed yourself to let loose and the house is chaotic, in my mind probably never was, but then someone was to see the background as you open the door and see that you were not doing your part. And so that became then this obsessive compulsive disorder in me that I realized was a good habit to start with, just like working out, but it became such a part of me that it controlled me, that if I didn't do it well, then I was not well. And I know that it rubbed off at times with my children and my husband, because they were there with me every step of the way, every day. And they knew whenever I was somewhat acting a little bit imbalanced, because I knew I have to go hit the gym. I have to go clean the house. I have to do this, for myself. And it was only the second thing that healed me was when I then activated myself, to teach, because that was when I realized I could no longer complete that type of lifestyle and cleaning every day, all day long, if I was working. One thing that set me off was I came home one day and one dirty sock was in a pile of clean clothes, and I kid you not, I threw everything in the air, started screaming belligerently, and my husband comes running upstairs thinking something's wrong. And when he heard me just explain, he's like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I'm like telling him, there was a dirty sock there. And he closed the door and he said, sit down. And then that's when he said, you're going to go crazy. You're going to go crazy if you don't let this stuff go. You've got to let go. So that was the second thing that fixed me. My first one was when I had my third child with my workout. And then I found myself to incorporate it into my cleaning lifestyle as after I would work out and so forth, so that I could double duo, I guess, And then it was me going to work, realizing, oh, you cannot do everything in the way that you'd like. And so those addictions really didn't even have to, it was a lot to pay for. You may think, well, you didn't have to go into a center to get help. Yeah, because you know what? It was my angels around me that forced me to shift my mind and then fix my spirit. And I am so grateful to this day that even though I carry it still a little bit, still love hitting the gym. Honestly, I realized that if I had nothing else to stop me, that's where I would be, or I'd be at home cleaning. And I take that into my classroom, but that's when I have to let it go as well. Because we all know as teachers that when you actually have people touching things, it would drive me crazy. The very first, few years when I would put all, my names on all the crayons and all the colored pencils and just every little finicky thing that I possibly could to control my room, I had to let that go as well. So hopefully by me just sharing this with you, whatever addiction you may have that you may not even realize is an addiction, say to yourself, it's okay to admit it and just to question, has this become an addiction? And the way you can ask yourself this, and the way I came to terms with realizing that I absolutely was starting to become addicted, was that I was no longer well. that if it did not, it was starting to control me and control my days, my hours, my moments, that if I did not do them on a daily basis or whatever routine or ritual that you created for yourself, I was besides myself. And then I realized that myself was not really who I wanted to be for my kids and my husband and, you know, my circle. And so I had to come to terms of saying, okay, it's all right to be a little bit of it, but not a lot. And I'm thankful that I was able to be pushed to be fixed rather than having the opportunity to keep going. Because sometimes if we have that opportunity where we can't stop and there's no roadblock, we could end up so much far worse than where we were. And it all started off with a good habit. Hopefully you got something out of this today, and in realizing it's okay to admit that you may need a little bit of a help, and shifting a little bit, change your schedule, just change a little bit, and it could perhaps really help you change the people you're around, change the, you know, the mindsets of those that you are with, you know, and then next thing you know, it could end up helping you to really divert yourself into the right direction where your heart, your mind, your body, and your spirit are sound, that you can feel it and that you're at peace and at rest, not feeling like this, because that's honestly where I could relate to and know that feeling. And no, you don't want to go back to that. You just want to go, it's okay. It's okay that the floor needs to be vacuumed, but I'm not going to do that right now. It's okay that that needs to be swept. I'm not going to do that right now. It's okay that I could be hitting the gym and I would love to go do some Zumba right now, or go hit some weights right now, or do some major cardio right now, but it's okay. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Be well with you in heart, mind, body, and spirit. And just know that whatever you're doing in the path of righteousness, that you should be proud of yourself every moment of the way. And we don't always get it right. We don't always know what right is, but we can accept at the end of the day that you really did what you could. And then you'll get it right the next day. Just keep working on you and you'll be fine. Keep loving. Keep loving you all the way through. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time.